On the last year of the second millennium, 500 years before the rule of the most benevolent Emperor Karl Franz, there fell a time unlike any other. Just as they had before the birth of divine Sigmar, the wings of fire in the sky again heralded the coming of great things, the coming of plague, the coming of war, the coming of pestilence and hunger. Though its unholy name is now stricken from the records of the great library of Altdorf, and its ruins razed by Magnus the Saviour of the Empire, I would tell you of a tale of the cursed city, brought low by the wrath of gods. I would tell you the tale of Mordheim.
Hey guys, I'm Jord. Welcome to my Realm Forge. So I've been playing Mordheim City of the Damned, which is the video game version of this book over on my gaming channel, which has inspired me to... I've basically decided that I'm going to build the warband in model form from the video game. So I'm making a bunch of tabletop stuff inspired by a video game, inspired by tabletop stuff, and specifically this tabletop stuff, which I'm going to read to you today. It turns out that I have enough subscribers to monetize this channel now, which is amazing. Thank you all for subscribing. But I'm still needing like 2,500 watch hours, so I thought a nice long lore video would be a good way to do it. So we're going to be reading everything in this book that isn't rules and stuff. Everything that's like diegetic, we're reading. So, you know, all the story, fluff, you know, in-world description to all warbands, all that kind of stuff. We're going to be reading through all of that, and hopefully you guys will enjoy it. I'm not a voice actor, but I've tried my best, so be kind. Hopefully it'll all be really fun for you guys to listen to on in the background, you know, while you're making a sandwich or sat on the loo.
Listen now to my tune. Oh, how my flute sings. Heed my call, mortals, and do not think of the things that waits you in the shadows where my siren's call lures you. Come, men, come, rats, come, the creatures of the dark. Hear not the cries of those who have gone before you. See not the brink of the abyss where your dancing steps take you. Dance to the tune of my flute, even if your feet are raw and bleeding. Smile with me, even if it is the smile of skulls, and your skin peels away. Laugh with me, though your throats may choke with bile, for now you are my puppets, and I shall lead you in a merry dance, the merry dance of death.
It is almost 20 centuries since Sigmar Heldenhammer purged from our lands the monstrous horde that dwelt there. So was founded the greatest of all realms of men, the Empire. Today our thoughts turn once more to Sigmar, the god of battles, Sigmar, the father of men, as the millennium turns and the time of his second coming approaches. In temples throughout our land, the multitudes gather to bear of the many and wondrous events that will surely unfold upon the return to his people of the living God. Never is the father of men more sorely needed than in the dying year of the last century of the second millennium. For the Empire, once as mighty in arms as it was bold in spirit, is now a realm rent by war and weakened by corruption. No emperor rules in these dark and terrible days. Instead, the Empire is riven into many lands, from Ostermark in the cold north to Wissenland in the distant south, from Marienburg by the Western Ocean till Sylvania that lies under the shadow of the World's Edge Mountains. Each lord fights his brothers within his borders and his neighbours without. Thus the lords of the Empire squabble over the crown, whilst bandits and rogues roam at will. None suffer as greatly as the dispossessed, so it is scarce wonder that the poor give themselves to wantonness, drunkenness, and all manner of vice. Theirs is a wretched existence, slain by blade and fire, squeezed dry by tax-gatherers, and robbed by bloated merchants who grow ever richer upon the profits of disorder. It was in the city of Mordheim, in the land of Ostermark, on the first day of the year 1999 of the era of Sigmar, that the seeress of the Sisters of Sigmar first observed in the night sky the long-awaited sign. It was as the prophet Macadamnus of Griel had predicted more than 500 years before, when he wrote, "In the city of his sisters he will return to us on wings of fire. From his throne he shall reign in incorruptible flesh forever. No death shall there be for those that gather to him there. And the northern lords shall rule the lands of the world together." Only then was it clear that the city referred to was none other than Mordheim. This city was home to the Holy Order of the Sisters of Sigmar, the Sisters of the Prophecy, and also the most northerly of the lands of the Empire. As to the Wings of Fire, this meaning too was plain for all to see. Overhead in the night sky was Sigmar's own holy sign, the double-tailed comet whose appearance 2,000 years before was held to have foretold of his birth. Night after night the comet grew brighter. Day after day people flooded into Mordheim as news spread through the empire of Sigmar's impending descent upon wings of fire. As that last year of the 20th century wore on, the comet swelled until the night was altogether banished from the streets of Mordheim. Its fires raged in the heavens so that the sun itself seemed a dull, cold thing in comparison. Beneath that portentous orb, the people of Mordheim seemed to forget any sense of modesty and gave themselves up to a ceaseless orgy of depravity. Who knows how many souls were crammed into that city? How many hundreds of thousands had gathered there from all over the empire, so that every street of every district overflowed with the unceasing music of merrymaking. Outside the city walls, the newcomers heaved and crushed and danced. None sought rest or shelter, for in those endless days no one stopped to sleep, but danced, feasted, drank, and gave themselves up to indecent pleasures. Later, it is said that demons crept from the shadows and mingled with the throng, crying joyously and cavorting with man and woman alike. But who can be sure of anything that happened, their minds clouded ever afterwards by the horror of those times?
Thus was gathered into Mordheim on the eve of its destruction all the sins of men together, as a boil gathers the poisons of the body ready to be lanced by the surgeon's knife.
It was not Sigmar, but his judgment that fell upon the city of Mordheim on the first moment of the first day of the new era. As the cavalcade of wickedness reached its zenith, the hammer of Sigmar fell to earth and ended forever the lives of every man, woman and child within the city. With a roar 10,000 times louder than thunder, the ground seemed to rise to meet the fire, casting down buildings, toppling walls and flattening trees in a flaming blast. In the distant city of Altdorf, temples shuddered and falling masonry plummeted to the streets below. Far beyond the Empire's borders, the underground fortresses of the dwarfs that had stood for generations cracked and fell. Nothing remained of Mordheim but burned and charred ruins. The city was so crowded that not everyone could enter, and a few of the revelers that massed outside the city walls did avoid the cataclysm. These survivors fled as far as they could, carrying the tale of Sigmar's divine punishment throughout the Empire, but even these did not escape unharmed, for many subsequently died, their bodies twisted and distorted from within by mutation, and their minds tortured by the memories of what they had witnessed. Swirling vapour enshrouded the city for many days after its destruction. This miasma was lit from within by an unearthly green glow, and was so hot that none could approach. Eventually this vapour dispersed somewhat and the ruins cooled. A few of the dispossessed drifted back to make a search for valuables abandoned in haste, or such treasures as might have escaped the wrath of Sigmar. In the new year, strange stories began to circulate of a wondrous stone discovered in the ruins, a glowing dark shard capable of working miracles. Soon other stones were discovered, of all shapes and sizes, credited with powers of the most extraordinary kind. If such tales were to be believed, the sick were cured, the blind could be made to see, tall trees would grow from the ground in a single day, and the very dead could be raised and made to speak again. Most telling of all was the successful transmutation of lead to gold, a feat undertaken at the behest of Siegfried, Count of Reichland, by his personal alchemist, Van Hoffman. Rumours of this discovery spread like wildfire throughout the Empire and beyond, as all manner of men flocked to the ruins of Mordheim to search for Weird Stone, as the strange stones were now called. So it was that the ruins of Mordheim drew the attention of the lords of the Empire and many more besides, for power and wealth was surely there for the taking. For some, there was the promise of wealth in the form of gold, which would pay their armies and advance their imperial ambitions. For others, there was the lure of magical power, yet others were drawn by simple greed, or else by more sinister reasons that loyal and goodly men could but hardly imagine. Then came the reports of monsters that lurked in the ruins, gigantic rats the size of men, the walking dead, demons, and the mutant creatures that might once have been men. Of such things, nothing more is to be said here. All came to Mordheim with their dreams, though few scarce imagined that by their actions the destiny of the world would soon be decided. During the year of madness before Mordheim's destruction, Ostermark fell into ever greater ruin as all matters of governance were neglected. Farmlands were abandoned as people flocked to the city, smiths deserted their forges, and even merchants and moneylenders gave up all attempt at commerce. Thus, even before the devastation, the land of Ostermark had fallen into anarchy, and its ruler, Count Steinhardt, had long since embraced the unhealthy pleasures so prevalent in those final days. He, together with most of the nobility of the land, perished in the cleansing fires of Sigmar, and sorrowfully, there were few who mourned the passing of the ancient and honourable line of Steinhardt. Today the land of Ostermark exists in name only. Wild reavers roam freely over the lands that are now neglected and ruinous. Foreign armies march through its territory without heed, and such honest men who remain, a pitiful few, must endure the constant marauding of thieves and bandits. Yet men still come to Ostermark. Indeed, they flock there from all over the Empire like carrion to a corpse. They are drawn by the mysterious lore of Weirdstone, for the magical powers of this stone have made it valuable beyond its weight in gold. Though the rewards for their endeavours may be great, and many a fortune has been earned in a day, the dangers are greater still. When treasure seekers first entered Mordheim, they did so without care, and often singly or in pairs, for little did they imagine the terrors that lurked in the grim ruins of the city. Many vanished without trace. Others returned maimed in body or unseated in mind, babbling uncontrollably of outlandish and bestial creatures. Some talked endlessly of demons and creatures from the pit. A few emerged empty-handed from the ruins to laugh insanely and unceasingly to this very day. Soon it was only the most foolhardy who ventured alone into the city of the damned. Fortune seekers chose instead to gather into armed groups or warbands, all the better for their mutual protection. Nor was it only monstrous things that were able to take the lives of fortune hunters, for the very air of Mordheim was found to be poisonous to those who lingered there too long. Even the weird stone they sought was to prove the death of many, for its raw magical power proved capable of burning flesh and wreaking horrific changes of mind and form. Many who entered Mordheim as comrades were soon driven to discord and murder by the vapours of the air and sorcerous energies of the Weirdstone. Others needed no magical influence before they set upon their fellows. The very discovery of the valuable stone was enough to make them turn upon each other like savages who dispute a glittering trinket, whilst all around them lie even greater treasures. Many more were to emerge from their sorties apparently unharmed, yet they soon sickened and died, or else developed such monstrous deformities of the flesh that their comrades abandoned them to die, or else slew them outright to spare their shame. Because of the pestilence within the city, there have grown up beyond its tumbled walls numerous shabby settlements of tents and such rude encampments as parties of hunters build to pass a week in the mountains. Needless to say, the great rivalry of men from different lands of the Empire has meant that these are set apart from each other and fortified with crude earthworks against their neighbours' attack. Some, such as Sigmarhaven, are safe enough for all their disorder, mounting paid watchmen to keep the peace and providing a marketplace for the arms sellers, sutlers and many victuallers whose shoddy wares fetch inflated prices in the treasure fever camps that gird the ruins. Others, like Cutthroat's Den, are little more than nests of murderers, where mutants walk freely and hooded men barter corpses to necromancers in return for tainted gold. These refuges, vile as they are safe compared with the ruins of Mordheim itself, where even to tarry for an idle hour can spell death or worse. The bands of men that dare to venture within are brave indeed, or else filled with a desperate kind of madness. Mercenary adventurers find employment quickly in the warbands that sally through the gates of Mordheim each day. Once through the gate, though, all common laws of human conduct cease to have any meaning. One may injure and murder at will, and every rival becomes a deadly enemy. Men that might dice and drink together of an evening may find themselves at each other's throats with daggers and swords the next morning. Such is the law of Mordheim, where there are no rules but the natural rule of kill or be killed. For only the strongest are destined to win the greatest prize of all. No one emperor reigns over the empire, and none has done so undisputed for 400 years or more. Amongst the counts of the empire, there are many who would wear the crown had they but the strength to impose their will upon their neighbours. By ancient tradition, the emperor is elected from amongst the rulers of the land, who are known as electors, so that the aspirant must seek the support of his fellows to obtain the majority. In addition, there are other authorities who, whilst not eligible for the crown, are also electors, and these must be courted too, for their influence is very great. Most notable is the Grand Theogonist of Sigmar, the leader in spirit of the people of Sigmar, whose temples stand in each town and every part of the empire. The discovery of Weirdstone in Mordheim has thrown all into confusion, for it offers an opportunity to break the deadlock between rival claimants. Each count has sponsored mercenary adventurers to recover what Weirdstone they can. Of these, the rulers of Reichland, Middenland, and Sylvania press hardest for the throne, whilst Lady Margarita, the common choice amongst the lesser states, and champion of the merchant guilds, has been disqualified by the Grand Theogonist of Sigmar according to the doctrine of male ascent, by which no woman may wear Sigmar's crown. Thus it is that the eyes of these great rivals turn towards Mordheim and its uncanny Weirdstone that has the power to turn base metals to gold. The Counts are not alone in their greed for power. The Empire has suffered disarray for many hundreds of years, and during that time the influence of the merchants and temples has grown greatly. In the city of Marienburg, the largest and most prosperous port in the Old World, merchants have flourished as nowhere else. And today the burgomeisters of that city wield powers of patronage greater than that of many noble-born men. Most influential of all are the Free Traders, a secret circle of the most wealthy guildsmen whose ambition is to raise the Lady Margarita of Marienburg to the throne of the Empire. The citizens of Marienburg are so well known for their richness of dress, love of jewellery, and preening ways that there are many who make fun of them and call them popinjays. In truth, there are many more who envy the wealth and security of Marienburg in a time of unrest. As the power of the Counts has declined, so the power of the merchant guilds has grown apace. Now there are plenty of rich commoners who would like to see an end to the old ways and a new ruling assembly that would give the mercantile classes political authority to match their wealth. Such is the general discontent that there are some amongst the wealthy who seek to gain power by means most foul. They turn to sorcery, that darkest of arts, recognised by all right-thinking folk as the very embodiment of evil, and whose practice has long since been punished by torture and death. Though few dare say so, it is common knowledge that wizards walk abroad in the Empire, meeting secretly to worship dark gods and creeping amongst the charnel houses to steal the dead. In hidden cellars, these agents of corruption summon demons to do their bidding, whilst necromancers send undead agents into the night to murder and steal. Now it is believed sorcerers walk openly in the City of the Damned, seeking that same Weirdstone whose powers may multiply the vitality of their own dark arts many times over. In consequence, the Templars of Sigmar gather to Mordheim, their carts laden with cages, braziers, irons, and ingenious instruments of torture, to do the work of Sigmar where it is most sorely needed. Witch hunters are they called, most commonly by those that fear them and those that hate them, and by themselves too, for they take pride in their persecution of heretics. Behind the witch hunters stands the greatest spiritual authority in the Empire, the Grand Theogonist of Sigmar. He too dreams of temporal power. Having denied the crown to Margarita of Marienburg, he is said to secretly covet it for himself. The destruction of Mordheim has created an atmosphere of religious terror, for who can deny that Sigmar's judgment has come to pass and his people have been found wanting? Since the new year, thousands have gathered to the holy places to make peace with their god and accept his punishment. Many supplicants have pledged their goods to the temples and taken to the roads as penance. Great crowds of beggars travel the lands, scourging themselves and each other to atone for the sins of all men. Now the Grand Theogonist has sent his witch hunters into Mordheim, ostensibly to cleanse it of the evil that undoubtedly dwells there, but also, it is said, to gather up Weirdstone for his own purposes. What manner of men come to Mordheim? What manner of men do not? To the tattered encampments that lie around Mordheim come men from every state in the Empire, from Middenheim and the city of Ulrich to Marienburg by the Western Ocean, from Sylvania and Wissenland, and every state in between. Some come for obtuse reasons of their own, but most come for one purpose only, to make their fortune. The largest portion of these mercenary adventurers are hired by the pretenders to the imperial throne, the Counts of Middenheim, Marienburg, and the Reichland, three patrons who are by far the richest and most ambitious contenders for power. Indeed, these three are such bitter rivals that it is rare to find men from different places even encamped together, and practically unheard of to find men from one land fighting in the same warband as men from another. Of the other claimants to the throne, the Count of Sylvania, Count von Karstein, is the most powerful, but such is his reputation few are tempted by his gold. For he is said to practice occult heresies of the most abominable nature, drinking the blood of men and raising the dead with foul necromancy. His minions are strange and sly, and though they skulk in shadow and hide from honest daylight, they too can be found in Mordheim. Few suspect the true nature of his, save perhaps the witch hunters who trust no one, and for the moment, at least, he remains just another contender for the throne of Sigmar. Who knows what ambitions the Grand Theogonist of Sigmar nurtures for himself? Having refused to crown the Lady Margarita of Marienburg, he has set himself against the merchant guilds, and most notably the Free Traders of Marienburg, whose secret membership occupies positions of authority throughout the Empire. Whilst proclaiming a holy crusade against mutants and sorcerers, the Grand Theogonist has sent the Order of Templars, better known as Witch Hunters, to scour Mordheim for Weirdstone. His sermons preach redemption, the vengeance of Sigmar, and the love of the Temple, but many suspect it is earthly rather than spiritual power that he craves. And what of the thwarted ambitions of the Free Traders and all those like them to whom the Old Order and Old Ways are shackles and chains binding their desire? Many have turned to the secret cults of the Dark Gods, whose worship is the most dire of heresies, and to the practices of sorcery, which all nature abhors as the very stuff of chaos. Their ambitions drive them secretly to Mordheim, where they gather up the Weirdstone. There they have found a leader, a Dark Emperor, though whether man or demon, none can say. He is known as the Shadow Lord, Master of the Possessed, and is said to dwell within the pit of Mordheim, deep inside the crater where the fires of Sigmar's fury still burn hot and foul smoke billows from gaping fissures. From this realm within a realm come demonic creatures of twisted and malign appearance, things of hideous aspect and great strength, which have come to infest the ruins of the City of the Damned. Within the city nothing remained, as it was all but utterly devastated, charred and ruinous. Where the hammer blow fell, there now stretched a pit, the edges of which remained hot to the touch, and its sides were as clear and smooth as glass. Where the very rock had ran molten in the furnace of Sigmar's fury. When the pall lifted from the pit, which took many weeks, so thick and noxious were the vapours that rose from it, the curious could discern here and there, as insects trapped in amber, the faces of the dead peering in terror from their glassy tomb, arrayed still as on that fateful night the wantonness and merrymaking. What, too, of the Sisters of Sigmar, ancient enemies of the Order of Templars, whose fanatical creed denies the divinity of women in Sigmar's temple? Stern and unbending in their views and deaf to reason, the witch hunters openly curse them for being heretics and an affront to Sigmar. The sisterhood themselves are not without power. Their numbers are drawn from the daughters of the noblest houses throughout the Empire. Their cloisters have provided a refuge for many who would otherwise have proven troublesome or embarrassing to their families. These two agencies of Sigmar's will fight side by side in Mordheim, yet are also the most deadly of enemies, for their rivalry is of an implacable and holy nature which no words of forgiveness can end. The Sisters of Sigmar hold a unique position in Mordheim, for their convent, the Temple of Sigmar's Rock, sits upon a tall and rocky island midstream in the River Ster, which flows through Mordheim, dividing it in two. Though the destruction of Mordheim left few buildings standing, it is an undoubted miracle that the Temple of Sigmar's Rock and its inhabitants survived unblemished. Indeed, whilst all those about them fell into depravity and wantonness, the sisterhood maintained their holy vigil, and raised unending prayer to Sigmar, and by this means they escaped his judgment. Or so they say, for certainly there are no witnesses to dispute their claims. The witch hunters sneer at these pious claims and maintain instead that a demonic pact allowed the sisterhood to betray Mordheim, yet escape destruction itself. Even today the sisters seem blessed, or else favoured by some diabolic power, for the great height of their refuge raises them above the poisonous vapours, and they claim to be able to resist the contagion without suffering harm. And what of those other denizens, the monstrous and the maimed, the mutant and the demonic? In what holes do they dwell, and to what ends do they come? These things remain a mystery to this day, yet in time all mysteries must be revealed. The strange rat-shaped creatures that skitter in the ruins we will cast from our minds for now, as many a bold mercenary adventurer would gladly do if he could, for their story is their own, and for the most part men deny their very existence, or else place them amongst the other monstrous and deformed creatures, of which there is no shortage in the City of the Damned. Thus are set the principal players upon the stage of destruction, the mercenary adventurers of Reichland, Middenheim, and Marienburg, the undead minions of the vampiric Count von Karstein, the cult of the Master of the Possessed, the Grand Theogonists, witch hunters, and the Holy Sigmarite Sisters, and most mysterious of all the creatures of the ruins.
And though thou walk with the shadow of fear before thine eyes, and the bitter taste of death upon thy tongue, yet each day thou shalt hear the call of thy doom, and wage war upon the destruction. And though thou sleep beneath the blinded pall of night, and the taste of darkness is ever sweetened by victory, yet the grasp of death is daily defeated, and the glow of immortality grows ever brighter. And though thou layest now in the cold grip of earth, and worms spawn silently upon thy palate, yet thy prison of moulded flesh gives succour still to the maggots that feed in unseeing, unthinking, and uncertain hope.
Witch hunter Marius Dyer looked down at the crest of the hill at his destination. The land before him was shrouded in twilight gloom, the ever-present cloud over Mordheim blocking out the afternoon sun. Patches of forest spread out from horizon to horizon, until they came abruptly to an end several miles away. In the distance, the city of the damned could be half seen through the shadows cast by the pall of smoke and dust hanging over the devastated settlement. Marius turned to his faithful companion Hensel, who was gazing doubtfully at the grim landscape.
I can smell the stench of chaos, the foul stink of unholy magic,
spat the witch hunter. Are you sure the Tainted One came here? Hensel asked, tightening his grip on the haft of a battered old halberd.
I know his spore,
Marius replied, turning his stony stare at Hensel.
Graves must have been disturbed along the way. The peasants tell of half-dead things plaguing their farms. I've hunted him through briar and bog, forest and fen, and I know his trail well. From his foul lair in the Middle Mountains I ousted him. For 175 leagues I have pursued him. Through Osterland and Talabecland I have harried and dogged him. He has come to Mordheim, be sure of it. The Lord of Chaos has brought him here.
Marius's voice became a bitter whisper.
My vengeance will never be sated until he lies dead by my own hands, his head severed and his heart cut out. Only his blood can pay for the misery he has brought me and my kin. I will make him pay for his crimes.
As the pair continued, the smell of wood fires was carried along by the desultory breeze. Breaking from the tree line, they saw a small settlement ahead and hastened towards it. A sign was planted in the withered grass to one side of the track. 3 skulls hung from it by rotten twine. On closer inspection, the skulls were clearly deformed. One had 3 eye sockets, another was grossly misshapen, while the third showed vestigial horns and fang-like teeth. Brighansburg, travelers welcome, Hensel read aloud. Sounds inviting. Brighansburg itself consisted of 4 stone buildings, once a farmhouse and outbuildings by their layout, surrounded by numerous wooden structures that had been haphazardly thrown together in the last few months. Chickens roamed the streets, a small boy was chasing a group of scrawny goats, whilst pigs grunted at the 2 newcomers from behind a rope fence. A thin old man was tending to the swine and looked up with suspicion in his eyes when he noticed Marius and Hensel.
Who's in charge here?
Marius demanded, leaning over the fence to scowl at the pig tender.
Don't rightly know, me lord,
the peasant replied, scratching at a weeping boil on his neck with the grimy broken nails of his right hand. He squinted his eyes in concentration, then hawked and spat. There's Lapzig the Bold. Came all the way from Altdorf, no less. He's got the most men, so I guess he could be in charge. Then again, you might try talking to Master Lupos. He's the richest of the merchants. You can usually find Lapzig in the alehouse, and old Lupos is next to the stables. The swineherd indicated the general direction with a wave of his left arm, which Hensel noticed ended in a crude wooden hook rather than a hand. They found Lupos haggling with a thin-waisted young boy. The merchant's stomach bulged over his rope belt, and a shapeless felt hat was rammed onto his head. As soon as he noticed Marius and Hensel, his frown turned to a wide grin.
Ah, more settlers for Brighansburg, he beamed, pushing aside the lad and holding his arms open wide. We need men and supplies, snapped Marius, stalking into the stable to stand in front of the overweight tradesman. If you've got the money, I've got the time, laughed Lupos, clapping a hand to Marius's shoulder, which was shrugged off hastily with a snarl. I'll take crowns, barter, or Weirdstone, the merchant added. Weirdstone? Marius asked, eyes narrowing dangerously. Aye, Weirdstone. Heals the sick, turns lead to gold, and water to wine by all accounts. The gift of the gods, so they say,
replied Lupos with a theatrical wink.
The gods of anarchy and misrule, declared Marius. It is corruption incarnate, evil embodied, chaos given solid form. It burns the soul and sears the mind. It decays and pollutes all who possess it. To touch it is to invite damnation itself. I'll pay in good honest gold for my wares. This place seethes with corruption. Decadence and chaos surrounds you. I will cleanse this place with torch and blade, so help me, Sigmar. Will you now?
Asked Lupos with a disbelieving look.
We'll see, we'll see. You will see, obese fool,
hisses Marius, grabbing Lupos's collar in one hand and pointing to the ragged scar across his own throat with the other.
The Tainted One gave me this reminder of his dark ways, that and the memory of my loved ones falling beneath his blade. He and all like him will die before I submit.
This is a time of unremitting war, civil strife, violence, and famine. A time of orphan children and wanton slaughter. For warriors, these are good times. Since the discovery of Weirdstone, Mordheim has become a magnet for fighting men from all over the Empire. Nobles, merchants, and the Temple of Sigmar itself offer rich rewards for shards of the mysterious stone. Foremost amongst the patrons of the mercenary warriors are the three most powerful contenders for the Emperor's throne. The Grand Prince of Reichland, the Count of Middenheim, and Lady Margrita of Marienburg, favourite of the merchant guilds. Reichland lies at the heart of the Empire, and its greatest city is Altdorf, home of the Grand Theogonist and seat of the Temple of Sigmar. Reichlanders are devout followers of Sigmar, the founder, first emperor, the patron god of the Empire. The Grand Prince of Reichland, as Siegfried, the ruler of Reichland, styles himself, is supported in his claim to the throne by the Grand Theogonist, and opposed most strongly by the Count of Middenheim and the priests of Ulrich. Throughout the Empire, Reichlanders are commonly supposed to embody the discipline and loyalty of the professional warrior. Brave and well-versed in the arts of war, Reichlanders disdain fashionable clothing in favour of well-made and practical war gear. In battle, they often wear coloured ribbons as marks of identification or authority. They are justly proud of their dynamic and ambitious Grand Prince, and contemptuous of other claimants to the throne, especially the Count of Middenheim, Manfred Todbringer, whom they sneeringly call the lapdog of Ulrich. Middenheim stands on a mountain pinnacle surrounded by dark forests in the centre of Middenland, and is also known as the City of the White Wolf, after Ulrich, the old god of wolves and winter. The priesthood of Ulrich is still strong in Middenheim, where Ulrich is venerated as the patron of the city. The tradition of rivalry between Middenheim and Reichland goes back hundreds of years, and the Count of Middenheim, Manfred Todbringer, is one of the chief contenders for the Emperor's throne. As a result, there has always been a great deal of friction between Middenheimers and the Temple of Sigmar. Middenheimers are typically large, strong-built men with a well-deserved reputation for ferocity. Many wear wolf pelts, which custom decrees to be the mark of those who have slain a wolf with their own hands. These grim warriors are famously contemptuous of danger. They frequently go into battle bareheaded, scoffing at those who choose, for reasons of good sense, to wear helmets. As Middenheimers favour long hair and beards, their lack of headgear makes them look especially fierce when they charge upon their enemies, howling their brutal battle cries. Marienburg is the largest and most prosperous trading city in the Old World. Many call it the City of Gold, which alone conveys a good idea of the wealth of this sprawling cosmopolitan city. Nowhere else can be found the vast array of shops selling goods from as far away as the elven kingdoms of Ulthuan in the west and distant Cathay in the east. The city's craftsmen represent every skill known to man, and a few others besides, so that it is, in Marienburg, there is no activity that cannot be quickly turned to profit. Many mercantile guilds have their headquarters in Marienburg, most important of all the secretive High Order of Honourable Free Traders, which represents the elite amongst mercantile society. This large, rich and ambitious body of men feel themselves shackled by the Old Order and are eager to seize power for themselves. Their champion for the Emperor's throne is the Lady Margrita. Thanks to the unseen influence of free traders throughout the Empire, all the minor electors are persuaded to support the Lady Margrita's claim. It was only the Grand Theogonist's refusal to crown her that denied Marienburg the throne, driving a wedge between the City of Gold and the Temple of Sigmar. Warbands sent to Mordheim are sumptuously dressed and armed. Though Marienburgers are often ridiculed as foppish and effete, their skill at arms and complete ruthlessness has earned them grudging respect. Their chief skills lie in dueling and in the use of poisons and other clandestine fighting methods. Richer individuals dress flamboyantly and wear jewellery.
However, the bulk of most warbands are recruited from the Dockland thugs, ship's crews, and stevedores who favour a simpler appearance: leather coats, bandanas, and short swords that are easy to conceal. Two huge stone gargoyles squatted in front of the crumbling arch of the gateway, leering at Marius and his henchmen as they approached. Leipzig made the sign of the sacred hammer across his chest as they passed between them. The wall itself was already being reclaimed by the land. Tendrils of ivy grew everywhere, and patches of moss were spreading over the ancient blocks. As they passed into the shadow of the Gargoyle Gate, Marius and Hensel saw the City of the Damned properly for the first time. Just inside the gate was a wide cobbled square. The stores around its edge were old but still standing. Their windows were broken, the doors had been stolen for firewood. Even the timbers of some had been hacked for precious fuel. The empty window frames and doorways stared at them like stone skulls.
It's pretty tame here. Wait until we get further in, then you'll really understand what has happened to this place.
Leipzig growled. With a flick of a finger, he sent one of his men to scout ahead. Just then, a wheezing cough reverberated around the courtyard, and all turned to see a hunched figure limping across the square towards them, swathed in rags.
Tell your fortune, sires?
The stranger asked. His eyes were covered in blood-stained bandages, and a palsied leg protruded at an odd angle from beneath the old man's tattered, stained white robes.
Get thy devilry from me!
Bellowed Marius, with wide, staring eyes. He wrenched his sabre from its scabbard and brandished it in the beggar's face.
Worshipper of darkness, I shall run thee through!
Wait!
The beggar cried, holding up a bony hand.
'Tis not from chaos comes my visions, but from holy Sigmar himself.
The man fumbled in his robes and pulled out a tarnished icon of a hammer.
I was a priest here once. When the sky fell, I clawed out my eyes so that I would not see the evil around me. Only Sigmar's great wisdom. He tells me you should turn back now and save your soul. One does not leap into damnation. One walks there one step at a time.
Be gone with your riddles, wretch!
Leipzig interrupted, shoving the old man away.
We must not tarry within the walls too long. Already there will be others aware of our presence.
What need have I for eyes that have seen such things, nor hands to touch, nor tongue to give voice to that brief uncertain terror of the dark? A curse upon land and heart, I say. For neither serves man well, but serves him ill. I see all men's hearts, and bear the beating out of their lives, knock by knock. How they grasp upon the shattered ruin of existence, so desperate are they to prolong their daily torment. Counting dross as if it were gold until their tally is done. I am here walking gently amongst you. I watch quietly the hour come round, and silently I summon you. You look upon me and recognize me then, for all men know me that live ever in my service. Your grip slackens and your sword falls from lifeless fingers and drops to the ground. You cry out soundlessly and try to speak, but cannot. For now you find the time for words is past. Now you can but follow me into the darkness that waits for you, as it always has.
There is never any shortage of men willing to risk their lives for a chance of real power, men whose ambitions lie beyond the scope of their birthright, or whose sorcerer's skill or physical deformities place them in constant danger of persecution. What do such men have to lose if they pledge their souls to the dark gods of chaos? In the aftermath of the destruction of Bornheim, all manner of mutants have appeared, whilst many hitherto unblemished folk feel the stirring of strange powers, the first awakenings of magical gifts destined to bring them to a fiery death at the hands of the witch hunters. Now a leader has appeared, a new dark emperor who claims lordship of the City of the Damned. He is called the Shadow Lord. Master of the possessed, and followers of the cults of chaos gather from all over the empire to pledge their souls to him. Though none know whether he is man or demon, all proclaim him their saviour and eagerly seek to do his bidding. As all students of the dark arts know, it is by the power of magic that creatures such as demons and spirits are able to stalk the mortal world. The Weirdstone that proliferates in Mordheim grants unnatural life to many vile things that by all natural rights should never exist. The possessed were once men, but by surrendering themselves wholly to the dark gods, they have allowed demons to possess their bodies. Their appearance is horrific, corrupted from within. Their flesh is twisted into a new and monstrous form. With the power of the possessed behind them, the followers of the Shadow Lord have grown powerful in Mordheim.
In the massacre of Silver Street, the cult of the possessed ambushed and destroyed a large force sent in to hunt them down. Now the streets of Mordheim belong to the Shadow Lord and his servants. The contaminated air does not affect them at all, or, more likely, it nourishes their inner corruption. Men who venture into Mordheim alone are hunted down and sacrificed to the dark gods. All warbands of the possessed gather Weirdstone for the Shadow Lord, who remains hidden in the pit, where he is said to be guarded by titanic possessed the size of houses. A few shards of the precious stone are kept by the warbands and used to create more of the possessed. The leaders of cult warbands are called Magisters, and each leads a group of cultists, minions of the dark gods of chaos. These are men whose hunger for power knows no bounds, who willingly give their bodies over to possession. All take part in the blood sacrifices, dark rituals, and worship of demons. Nothing is too base for them. These degenerate humans are joined by other creatures as vile as they, things half man, half beast, that call themselves Gors, and which men refer to as beastmen. There are few sights as horrific as a cult warband. Deranged warriors smeared with blood and dirt wave jagged weapons and chant blasphemous rites as they throw themselves upon their foes. Many are hardly recognizable as human, their bodies are so scarred and disfigured. The stigmata of mutation is borne by most, but the most unsettling of all are the possessed themselves, melded flesh made of men, beasts, and metal, driven by the implacable will of a demon. The massive rock of Mordheim, topped by the city's ancient keep, eclipsed what little sunlight filtered through the eternal clouds of ash and dust. Deeper inside the town, the buildings were more dilapidated. Many of them had collapsed, and the streets were strewn with rubble. Here and there, the dark opening of a cellar could be glimpsed through the ruins, while occasionally a staircase or porch stood out on its own. The rest of the building just a pile of stones around it. As the party marched on, a horde of rats scurried from one ruined building, their squeaking noise echoing off the walls as they swarmed around the humans. With tails lashing, they stared at the strangers with evil, glinting eyes before disappearing into a maze of cracks and crevices. As Lapzig led them on, Marius thought he could see shapes moving in the shadows. A tittering laugh sounded far off in the distance, while a sudden gust of wind screeched through the twisted metal of an old coaching inn's gateway. For a second, the witch hunter was sure he saw several pairs of yellow eyes glaring at him from a dark corner, but they were gone in an instant. Lapzig's men were getting more edgy now, and the mercenary leader signalled them to ready their weapons. They proceeded more cautiously, staring into the shadows to spot any enemy. Now and then, they would all freeze at a sudden sound, a roofing slate slipping, the clink of rubble settling, or a faint scratching noise like a claw scraping on stone. Without warning, the Skaven struck. Marius found himself face to face with one of the ratmen, where moments before there had been empty air. It swung at him with a serrated blade, and the witch hunter leapt to one side to avoid the attack. The creature wore a ripped black cloak, its face wrapped in dark strips of cloth studded with metal rivets. Marius dragged one of his pistols from his belt and pulled the trigger. With a sputtering hiss, the black powder ignited, and a moment later the pistol fired, flinging the Skaven to the ground, its arm a bloody mess. Marius looked around. He saw that his men were surrounded. Lapzig and one of his men fought back to back against three ratmen wielding crude spears. Lapzig's blade darted out, catching one of the Skaven in the chest, while another was thrown back by a blow from his companion's mace. Hensel was using the point of his halberd to hold off the attack of another Skaven, which ducked and dived nimbly to avoid the man's thrusts. More cloaked figures slinked through the melee, leaping around swinging blades, ducking beneath arrows with a deftness almost impossible to believe. A shadow fell over Marius, and he looked up just in time to see something bounding out of an empty window above him. With a hiss, the Skaven landed neatly in front of the witch hunter. Marius fired his other pistol, but the creature easily rolled to one side. With a motion faster than could be seen, it brought its hand back and then forward, flinging something at Marius. He barely ducked in time as something slashed through his cloak and embedded itself in the wall behind him. Glancing back, he saw a three-pointed throwing star stuck in an ancient timber, its sharp edges dripping with a greenish venom.
Die, spawn of darkness!
Marius snarled, ripping his saber from its scabbard and charging towards the Skaven. Three blades swept forward to parry the witch hunter's attack, one in each of the Skaven's clawed hands, and the other gripped by its prehensile tail. Marius pulled a dagger from its scabbard at his left hip, blocking the downward strike of a sword inches from his face. The Skaven's weapons weaved a blurring pattern of rusted iron, slicing in and out with startling speed. The air was filled now with the ring of metal on metal, broken occasionally by the cry of a wounded man or the shriek of an injured Skaven. Marius was being slowly forced back, using all his skill to parry the flurry of attacks the Skaven was directing at him. Step by step, he inched back across the road, nearly stumbling as his heel caught on a shattered flagstone. Then Marius felt a wall at his back, and he knew he could retreat no further. Sensing victory, the Skaven gave a snarl and redoubled its efforts, one of its blades tearing through the cloth of Marius's leggings. Grimacing through the pain of the wound, Marius batted aside another vicious blow. With a shout, the witch hunter punched out, smashing the basket hilt of his sabre into the foe's face. Stunned, the Skaven staggered back. Marius stepped forward to finish the creature off, but it lashed out with one foot, clawed toes raking across the witch hunter's chest, sending him reeling back into the wall. With a final menacing glare, the Skaven leapt away, squeaking a command to its followers in its own language. As quickly as they had appeared, the Skaven were gone, just the faint scrabbling on the piles of stones indicating the direction they fled in. Clutching his wounded leg, Marius leant against the wall, letting his sabre drop to the ground. Looking around, he saw that of the 10 men following him, 2 of them were dead, their bodies lying in spreading pools of blood on the dusty ground. Hensel was leaning heavily on his halberd, puffing for breath, gazing down at the body of one of the rat men, its head split in half by a heavy blow. Lapzig seemed unhurt. He was tending to one of his men, wrapping a bandage around his upper arm. The others were cut and bruised, but not seriously harmed.
We have to go back to Brugensberg. We can't carry on today, Lapzig declared, wiping the blood from his sword.
Marius was about to argue, but was suddenly gripped by a wave of dizziness. Slumping to the ground, Marius waved away Hensel's offered arm.
Yes, back to Brugensberg. But we'll come back. We'll come back.
The witch hunter vowed through clenched teeth before the ground rushed towards his face and blackness descended. The Order of the Templars of Sigmar, universally known as the Witch Hunters, is an organization dedicated to the eradication of heretics, be they warlocks, witches, sorcerers, fortune-tellers, necromancers, worshippers of the dark gods, deviants, mutants, blasphemers, sinners, utterers of profanities, servants of demons, or composers of corrupting music. Indeed, there are few who altogether escape the suspicions of the Witch Hunters, with the possible exception of other witch hunters. It is wise to remember that the practice of magic in all its forms is deemed a most heinous crime in the Empire. Death by fire is the prescribed punishment for this particular heresy. Many of the witch hunters' victims treacherously avoid their fate by perishing under torture before making a full confession. In these troubled times, the witch hunters are kept busy as more and more men turn to the dark arts. The most dangerous of all these heretics are the followers of the Chaos Gods. These depraved individuals practice demon worship and, it is claimed, even offer human sacrifices in the name of their vile masters. Of all the enemies of Sigmar, they are the most abhorrent. The destruction of Mordheim has fired the witch hunters with a new and irresistible sense of purpose. In the light of events, the Grand Theogonist has proclaimed Sigmar's punishment on the City of the Damned. The witch hunters rejoice that their crusade against widespread corruption has been vindicated. Now they are ready to complete Sigmar's holy purpose by destroying his enemies within the ruins of the city itself. The Grand Theogonist has commanded the witch hunters to go unto the place and recover the Weirdstone for Sigmar's temple. Their crusade also pits them into the same arena as their old enemies, the so-called Sisters of Sigmar, those loathsome demon-worshipping she-heretics whose very existence is a vile affront to the majesty of Sigmar. Witch hunters are charismatic rabble-rousers who can soon turn a crowd to their own ends. They are universally dreaded, for everyone has something or someone to hide. And there are countless individuals who would willingly and enthusiastically hunt down and burn their own kin were a witch hunter to command them to do so. Bands of witch hunters are often accompanied by zealous citizens, flagellants, and even holy priests of Sigmar, as well as the huge vicious warhounds which the witch hunters employ to track and bring down fugitives. As men accustomed to fighting, witch hunters are well-armed and sturdy individuals. They favour hooded cloaks and war gear that conceal their appearance from the overly curious. Some wear chains about their throats to remind them of fallen comrades and old rivalries, and also, so it is said, so that the iron might serve as protection against witchcraft. The followers of the witch hunters, the rabble that accompany them to Mordheim, are a far more dire sight indeed, crazed and self-mutilated men who have lost or surrendered all their worldly goods, and most likely their reason as well.
Look into your soul, mortal. From within you, the demons, each one of your base desires, watch you and push you on, chasing after the trappings of wealth and power, gold, glory, fame, and Weirdstone. These are the marks of a great lord, the master of mankind. Lies, warrior, for even your greatest success is your ultimate failure. Your life is all but a mere illusion. Wealth, fame, fortune are but fleeting things. Your word is a web which entraps you more firmly as you struggle to control your pitiful, worthless life. And in the center of the web sits the great spider of your greed. As it touches the strands of the web, you jerk like a puppet, and vainly believe that it is you who is in control of your destiny.
For centuries, the nobility of the Empire has sent its wayward or troublesome daughters to the holy convent of the Order of Merciful Sisters of Sigmar in Mordheim to be initiated into the only order of priestesses dedicated to the Empire's patron god. The Sisters of Sigmar, as they are commonly called, have traditionally travelled the Empire administering to the sick and poor, tending to the needs of orphans, curing the diseased and mending broken bodies, as well as the healing arts, which they practice with expert knowledge of herb lore and prayer. Their advice is frequently sought by those about to make an important decision, for the Sisters of Sigmar are famed for their ability to predict the fickle course of fate. Though once much loved by the common people, the Sisters have seen their popularity wane in recent years. Rabble-rousing witch hunters have denounced them as witches and heretics, so that even in the countryside they are attacked and driven away by the very peasants they seek to help. Many of Sigmar's priests wish to disband the order altogether, claiming that women have no right to teach the holy word of Sigmar. Even the Grand Theogonist, ostensibly the chief authority over the order, has cooled towards the sisterhood, denying the throne to Margrethe of Marienburg, who was once brought up by the sisters and said to be sympathetic to their cause. These days, the Sisters of Sigmar have retreated to their convent situated high on the craggy island of Sigmar's Rock in the River Ster in Mordheim. Of all the inhabitants of Mordheim, only the Sisters of Sigmar were prepared for its destruction. Seeress Cassandora foretold of the disaster, and at their nightly vigil the Maidens of Sigmar heard the voice of Sigmar speaking in their dreaming minds. Thus they knew that they would be safe in their fortress high above the city. Raised as it is above the polluted vapours, if only they were prepared to survive the fire of Sigmar's fury. While the rest of Mordheim fell under a spell of madness, the Sisters of Sigmar offered prayer after prayer, scourging themselves to drive out all thoughts of sin, fervently accepting a punishing penitential regime to harden their minds against the wantonness running rampant outside their walls. When the blow finally came, the sisters gathered beneath the great temple dome of their convent, which, well built and fortified as it was by the prayers of the sisters, protected them from the fire and heat of their master's ire. The sisters believe they have a holy mission, a task that they have been set by Sigmar himself, and to which they must submit themselves body and soul. Their sacred duty is to gather up the shards of Weirdstone and hide it deep beneath Sigmar's Rock in the vaults of their convent, where, shielded by a great depth of stone granite and guarded by the eternal prayers of the sisterhood, it will cause no harm to Sigmar's people. It is a nigh hopeless task, for there are few sisters and countless shards of stone. Worse still, there are many who want the stone for themselves, to take it from Mordheim and spread its contagion amongst the cities of the Empire. The warbands of the sisterhood are led by tough matriarchs, each accompanied by a body of warrior sisters. The training and harsh discipline of the convent includes mastery of martial as well as ecclesiastic skills, for mastery of the body is but the first step towards mastery of the soul. Their favoured weapon is the Warhammer, the instrument of Sigmar, seen as his holy symbol alongside the twin-tailed comet.
All who profit from the spoils of chaos shall be doomed, so quoth Grand Theogonist Vilgrim III,
Marius said vehemently.
I am not a looter or a thief.
It's been 3 weeks now, Marius,
Hensel argued bitterly.
We've run out of money, we need more men, we need new weapons. For Sigmar's sake, Marius, we'll all starve.
Hensel paused for a moment, and a sly look entered his dark brown eyes.
That broken vault is there, and someone will find it. Others less righteous than us will be looking for it. Would you see the wealth of the Empire stolen by wicked creatures or men of no moral virtue? At least we'll be spending it to further our noble cause.
As the two spoke, Endelin, one of Lapzig's men, came around the corner, clearly excited.
We found a merchant's house. The vault is there, all right,
he told them with a grin.
We'd better be quick and grab the hoard before there's any trouble.
With that, he hurried off again, the witch hunter and Hensel following. Endelin led them down a narrow alleyway, choked with debris. At the far end, where the alley opened onto the wider street, a skeleton hung from a gibbet, its rusted metal creaking as the cadaver swung in the stale wind. A corner of a nearby building had broken through its foundations, and within the dark confines of the exposed cellar, gold glinted in the dim light. "We'll be taking that," A voice called out, and from the shadows stepped a dozen men, some carrying crossbows, the others wielding swords and spears. They were all well dressed in the manner of Marienburgers.
Do not oppose me,
cried Marius, pulling forth his own blade.
I am sent here by Sigmar himself. Cross my path and be forever damned. The world around us is in turmoil. Chaos gnaws upon the bones of our lands. Foul creatures lurk in our once proud cities. Men should not fight men in these troubled times, for have we not a common foe to fight against?
All the same, that gold is ours. Their leader replied, signaling his men to advance.
Then so be it. You shall be in the arms of damnation before the sun sets.
Marius snarled back, leaping to the attack. Count Vlad von Karstein and his wife Isabella have ruled the province of Sylvania for as long as anyone can remember. Peasants whisper of some dark secret, witch hunters revile them, and the priests of Sigmar shun their court. Indeed, Sylvania has the most dire reputation of all the provinces of the Empire. Few men sent to spy on the rulers of Sylvania have ever returned from those dark Sylvanian forests, and then rarely with their sanity intact. In the dimly lit chamber of the Drakenhof castle, on a throne of black obsidian, sits Vlad von Karstein, the ruler of Sylvania. He waits in shadows, having set himself apart from the politics and bickering of the Empire, for he holds a terrible secret. He and all the ruling aristocracy of his province are vampires, undying monsters from beyond the grave. Here he patiently waits, drinking the blood of maidens from gold goblets. For many long years, Vlad has gathered his strength and mustered his undead legions in secrecy. One day soon he will march from the forests of Sylvania at the head of an army of restless dead. The pieces of magic stone that lie scattered among the ruins of Mordheim can give the Count the power to challenge the nobles of the Empire and enslave the men of the old world. Weirdstone holds enough captured magical energy to unleash a great spell of doom to rival that of Nagash the Black. If the Count is successful, he will raise all the dead between the World's Edge Mountains and the borders of Stirland, and go to war against the divided rulers of the Empire. His plans laid out, Vlad sends his thralls, the immortal vampires, to do his bidding. During dark, moonless nights, black coaches arrive at the gates of Mordheim carrying coffins. Ghouls scuttle from their hiding places to greet them, and corpses are stirred by the command which the living cannot hear. Following the commands of the vampire, they hunt for shards of Weirdstone. The night belongs to the undead, and in Mordheim it is always night. Silted and murky, the river gurgled sluggishly under the stone bridge. As Marius glanced over the crumbling wall, the pale and bloated corpse of some mutated beast bubbled to the surface briefly, and then slipped back into the depths.
Our quest is almost over, Hensel,
said the witch hunter, pointing towards the ruined warehouse and collapsed wharves on the far bank.
Rumour has it that the Tainted One and his undead minions lurk here, close to the rankness of the heart of chaos.
He pointed at the miasma curling up from the site of the Godstone's impact. Greenish vapours tinged the fog that hung in the alleys and slid through the shattered shells of buildings. Here the devastation was at its worst. And as they reached the middle of the wide bridge, they could see the area of the city that had been flattened for many hundreds of yards by the colossal detonation of the comet's fall. From behind then, they heard a series of tortured screams.
Someone's in trouble. We should go back and help,
Hensel suggested, looking back.
No distractions now,
Marius replied, his eyes firmly fixed on his goal. As the agonized shrieks reached a terrified crescendo, Marius glanced back for a second before continuing to stalk across the bridge.
I have done so much that I was loath to, all in the cause of Sigmar. I have stolen from the ruins. I have raised my blade against fellow men, Sigmar's teeth. I've even sold that accursed Weirdstone, that I may hire more men for the quest. Nothing shall deter me now.
As they entered the docks, a strange murmur filled the air. Heinrich, who was scouting ahead, gave a short yell and came running back out of the fog. His eyes were wide with terror, and he stumbled, falling to his knees. Behind him, shapes loomed out of the mist. Shuffling remorselessly towards them came a group of 3 zombies, dragging their twisted bodies through the mist, eyes staring vacantly upwards. The zombies' skin hung in fleshless folds across their bones, torn and rent in places. The stomach of one of the undead creatures had split, and internal organs poked through the tear, glistening with sickly fluids. The head of another had been all but crushed, the skin sloughing away from its skull to reveal the shattered bone beneath. The stench of rotting carcasses hung on the breeze, and the crack and scrape of dead bones and sinews could be heard amongst the dry death rattles issuing from the zombies' lifeless lips.
A bestial howl rent the air and lupine shapes loped into view behind the party, their eyes filled with a baleful red glow. As the group of humans backed away from the zombies, the dire wolves started to circle behind them, their instinct for the hunt driving them even beyond the veil of death. Low snarls and growls rumbled from their slavering jaws as they dove in, their matted pelts shimmering with a supernatural glow. For a moment the group stood transfixed with fear before a crossbow quarrel cut through the air and thud into the chest of the nearest direwolf. The beast stumbled in its advance and then dragged itself upright again, grasping the shaft of the bolt in its jaws and then ripping it out with a twist of its head. As if a spell had been broken, the mercenaries began to act. Heinrich was busily reloading his crossbow while Hensel and Lapzig leapt towards the zombies, their weapons raised for the attack. Marius pulled a pistol from his belt and levelled it at the closest zombie. His finger tightened hard on the trigger and the fog was momentarily lit by the blaze of black powder. The lead ball smashed into the eye of the witch hunter's target and exploded out the back of its rotted head, spraying brains across the street. The creature fell to one knee and then looked up at Marius with its remaining eye. The witch hunter saw no emotion or thought at all in that gaze, just mindless acquiescence to the will of its controller. Aiming his other pistol at the crippled undead, he blew its knee away, making it collapse into the fetid puddles that dotted the street. As he looked around to assess the progress of the battle, Marius spotted more movement from a side alley. Gripping his cutlass tightly, he plunged through the mist, coming face to face with one of the Tainted One's minions. At first, Marius thought it was just another zombie. Its skin was blistered with weeping boils and its eyes were yellow and rheumy. Then the witch hunter noticed a spark of intelligence in the eyes of his adversary, and it gave an all-too-human shriek as it raised its crude mace. Marius easily sidestepped the clumsy swipe and rammed his blade up to the hilt into its stomach. Cracked fingernails scrabbled at his face and neck for a moment before the man finally died, his last breath sighing from his lips with a hiss. Pulling the cutlass free, Marius stepped back and shoved the corpse to one side. He was filled with a feeling of triumph. Soon he would kill the Tainted One, and he could leave this miserable place of squalor and insanity to the fools and madmen who thrived here. Unbeknownst to man, for thousands of years he has shared his world with another and altogether different race. There have always been signs for those who cared to see them. A scurrying black shadow, an inhuman scream from the sewer, scuttling shapes at the back of the cellar. All these years, these creatures have worked away in secret, burrowing beneath the world of man, undermining his great cities, infiltrating his sewers and cellars, and joining all up into a vast world-spanning labyrinth of tunnels and nests. These creatures call themselves Skaven, and they are the Rat Men, the mutant spawn of an older age of chaos and mutation. Doubtless one day the Skaven will be ready to emerge from their tunnels and wage open war upon mankind. For centuries they have been content to feed upon his ruins, to seed plague in his cities and spread contagion amongst his lands. At least they were content to wait and watch, for now everything has suddenly changed. Now the destruction of Mordheim has created new opportunities in the secret war against mankind. Since ancient times, the Skaven have searched the world for the stones of power that men in their ignorance call Weirdstone, but which Skaven have long since known as Warpstone, Blackstone, or Seerstone. It was a result of gnawing upon the magic stone in ages past that commonplace rats began the slow process of mutation that spawned the Skaven race. Weirdstone is quite literally in their blood, for they feed upon it and make use of it in their foul sorceries. Until now, the Ratmen's search for Weirdstone has been difficult and time-consuming as the stone has grown increasingly rare. But now a new and abundant source has appeared, a dark blessing from the skies. For the Skaven of Clan Eshin, this is an especially opportune time for such a thing to happen, for just as the Empire is divided, so the Skaven race is divided amongst itself. Clan fights clan the world over, each struggling for domination of the Council of 13, whose masters rule the Skaven race. Mordheim's secret is not yet revealed to all the clans, or else the City of the Damned would already be overrun with Ratmen. The Nightmaster of Clan Eshin is keen to guard this secret, and for this reason has not sent his multitudinous armies into Mordheim. Instead, he has sent small warbands of Skaven skittering through secret tunnels into the city to gather up the shining stones and bring them back to the clan nests. The Skaven of Clan Eshin are supremely adapted to their task. Masters of the art of bringing silent death to their foes, they are skilled in the use of poison and trained in the 1,000 secrets of the assassin. Since birth, Skaven warriors practice martial crafts in the ruinous temples of the Horned Rat, their ever-hungering and hideous god.
There are none better amongst the verminous kind to gather up the treasure of Mordheim, but they must be silent, swift, and efficient. Were rival Skaven clans to discover the secrets of Mordheim, there would come not hundreds, not thousands, but millions upon millions to contend for the Wardstone in the City of the Damned.
It is a dark time. The might of the emperors is dust. Their crown is lost to them, and their glory forgotten. The promise of an age of peace and prosperity is drowned in blood. This is your time, for the ruins of Mordheim hold a prize beyond imagination. Stones of power which can grant all your wishes, but beware of your enemies. Fear the possessed, the beast of the pit, which roam the night. Watch for the knives of the rat men, the Skaven of the underworld. Dread the corpses who walk like the living, the foul vampires and their rotting minions. This is Mordheim, the city of the damned. This is the home of all your hopes. Be wary, or it will be your grave as well. We are close, so close,
whispered Marius to himself. He could almost feel the necromancer's presence not far off, but hidden from view.
Hold them off, the witch hunter ordered his men. I will track down the deviant and slay him, thus shattering the unholy spells that bind these creatures to this realm.
As he ducked into a side street, Marius looked back. He saw Hensel grappling with a zombie, fending off its clawing hands with swipes from his trusty halberd. To one side, a dire wolf, eyes ablaze with unnatural vigor, feasting on the body of one of the mercenaries, tearing hunks of flesh with its dagger-like fangs. Lapzig lopped the head off a zombie with his sword, and for a moment its body stood there as if it might carry on fighting. A flicker of darkness streamed from its neck and it collapsed to the ground, the magic holding it in undeath dissipating into the fog. Marius turned his attention back to Hensel, who was lying on the ground. A zombie had its jaw clamped around his neck. Hensel still fought weakly, trying to push the creature away. Things were going badly for the protectors of humanity. Without further thought, Marius strode on, straining every sense to locate the necromancer, the devil in human form known as the Tainted One. His eyes scanned the shattered buildings, his ears sought a telltale incantation while he sniffed deeply, trying to catch the foul reek of weird stone and grave dust. He could still hear the war cries of his men, the clash of weapons from a few streets away. Eerie echoes of the fighting drifted from the broken walls and distorted by the clinging mist. As he scrambled across a pile of masonry, Marius saw dust streaming down into a hole beneath the rocks. Pulling aside lumps of stone, he saw a tunnel stretching away beneath his feet. The legendary catacombs. He whispered to himself, pulling the lantern down from his backpack and lighting it quickly with deft flicks of his flints. Lowering himself carefully into the hole, Marius found himself in a low tunnel shored up with brick in places. A stream of water ran down the middle of the corridor, evidence that this was part of Mordheim's sewers. Shielding the glow from the lantern for a moment, Marius peered in each direction, trying to discern which way to go. He thought there was a faint glow to his right, and he set off in that direction. For what seemed like an eternity, Marius followed the sewers, but as he continued, the faint glow grew brighter to become the glow of flickering flames thrown against the curving tunnel wall. Stepping through an archway, the witch hunter came into a high-vaulted space where several sewer tunnels met. Braziers stood around the cavern, and Marius dropped his lantern to the ground when he saw a robed figure with its back to him.
Tainted One, Marius roared, thy doom has come.
The figure whirled round, and rheumy eyes met the witch hunter's stare as he unsheathed his saber and ran towards the necromancer. The dark sorcerer sneered and spoke a word of power, black bolts of energy springing from his eyes. Marius dived to one side and rolled to his feet again. The necromancer dropped a massive tome he was holding to the ground, undoubtedly his evil grimoire. The Tainted One drew a long dueling blade and took up a well-practiced fencing stance.
My doom?
He taunted in a cracked voice.
What do you know of doom?
Your evil power does not taunt me, fiend.
Marius spat back, making a lunge with his sword that the necromancer easily parried.
Power? Yes, there is much power here. It brought me here. It brought you here. Chaos has taken Mordheim to be its own. We are all its servants now.
The necromancer cackled, the point of his thin blade slicing just in front of the witch hunter's face.
Never!
Cried Marius, hacking at the necromancer's legs only to find the magic user's blade blocking his own.
You are already caught in the web. You have walked along the path of darkness. You cannot turn back. Look at what you have done and tell me that you are better than I. What depths have you not stooped to in your quest? My magic could give you immortality. Think what good works you could do if you never died of old age.
The necromancer circled slowly, his fencing sword drawing a figure of 8 in front of him. With a wordless bellow, Marius brought his sabre round in a wide arc, its heavier blade smashing through the narrow rapier of his foe and slashing across his neck. With blood bubbling from his lips, the necromancer collapsed to the ground. Marius stooped and picked up the grimoire. He snorted in derision. To think he was tainted was ridiculous. He looked at the page where the book was opened. It was entitled On Escaping from the Grip of Death. Without truly realizing what he was doing, Marius began reading.
Rejoice, for there shall come to pass a time when hopes of salvation shall come to naught. Death and despair shall rise up in a tide of terror to sweep away the follies and foolish dreams of mortal men. Let the misguided puppets of law look upon the great destruction to come and weep, for all that is civilized and unnatural shall be brought low. Rejoice, for the land itself will heave up in mighty rebellion to the chains of the order. The dead shall stir in their graves, and the skies will burn with the tears of gods. The fires of blissful war shall scour the fields, forests, and towns, and the victims of death's unswerving affection shall litter the world in bloated heaps. The sins of man will spring bodily from their nightmares, given form by the vile sickness that lies in the hearts of every man. Rejoice, for the night shall always follow day, the darkness will always eclipse the light, and chaos shall once more rule supreme.
The necromancer dropped the crushed weirdstone into the burning brazier, causing the roaring flames to leap up and light the room in greens and blues. His spies had told him that a witch hunter had come to Mordheim to run him down and end his unholy work. Thinking of it made the evil necromancer laugh aloud. The stupid fool did not know what dangers he was dealing with. Enemies might be killed, riches might be won, but nobody could defeat this city. Mordheim no longer belonged to the normal mortal world. The stones themselves were steeped in the very stuff of chaos.
Perhaps he will kill me. He will be young, brash, naive. He will be full of pride and noble self-sacrifice. He believes he can defeat this place,
he told his zombies with a bitter laugh. As they waited dumbly around him, their unseeing eyes clouded over, the flesh hanging limply off their rotting bones.
It doesn't matter anymore, for I have the power now. I have the means to continue the great quest for all eternity. Isn't that right, Hensel?
He asked the nearest of the zombies, which leant on the haft of a battered old halberd. The creature slowly turned its head towards him, its broken jaw lolling open to issue an unintelligible moan.
He thinks he knows what the truth is, doesn't he? Well, he will learn,
mused Marius Dyer.
He will learn.
Alright guys, so that's it. That's all of the things. I read the whole book. Well, not the rules. I didn't touch upon any of the rules. And I think there was the odd little bit that I didn't touch upon because it felt redundant or because I had run out of voices to do. But anyway, I hope you guys all enjoyed it. This book actually has credits in it, which is something that Games Workshop don't really do anymore. So, yeah, thank you to everyone involved in making Mordheim a great game and a great book to read. So yeah, Tumas Pirinen, Rick Priestley, and Alessio Cavatore. I hope I said all those names right. Kind of titans in the field, honestly. A couple of them went on to do Trench Crusade more recently, so like they're still busy and they're still making beloved games. So it's great to see they've gone from strength to strength. John Blanche did a bunch of the illustration, which is amazing. There was a lot of people involved in the illustration, but I think we can all agree all the illustrations I've been showing you in this video have been gorgeous. It is a gorgeous book to look through. And storytelling from Gavin Thorpe. A lot of people recognize Gav Thorpe. You know, so yeah, I reckon The Adventures of Marius Dyer were one of his. That story feels very Gav Thorpe-y, doesn't it? But, you know, maybe he did something else. I don't know, but that feels Gav Thorpe-y. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to subscribe for modelling content, not just storytelling, but there'll actually be some modelling stuff on this channel, Mordheim related. So go enjoy that. And also there's a link to the video game playlist. I've been playing the video game over on my gaming channel, so there's a link in the description, should you wish to give that a watch. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Share this with all your friends, and love you, bye.